justice. Most of the show will be run by Dr. Marotta. So we're just waiting for my joining us to now come on board. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Marotta. I can see Professor Dr. Dwarakanath Tripathi.
What is Professor Milton doing in a hospital?
Professor Dr. Dwaravati.
Problem last week postpone
Okay, Dr. Marotta, you could proceed. I'll have them in, and I'll have my
problem. Yes, I'm just need the update of the other names. It's a professor I have here.
Professor Dr. Hamid.
Yes, that's correct. I am updating the names so I can follow where is here.
All right.
Yes.
Let me try to get Professor Dwarakati Tripathi. Yeah, he's here to enter. Yes, Professor Dr. Tripathi. Greetings.
Yes.
Yes, Professor. Professor Dr. Milton. The session is going to be hosted by Dr. Giovanni Marotta, owing to my emergency situation. So for now, all I'll do is have a 1-minute open speech and hand over the proceedings to him. I'll feature again as it goes on. How is your location now? How is everything there?
Everything fine, Professor. I hope you are doing fine.
Some improvement, yes, but still not able to sustain a sustained session. How is COVID-19 in that region? How is COVID-19?
I wish you a fast recovery.
Amen.
I wish you a very fast recovery.
Thank you very much, Prof. Okay, at around 3 o'clock, I'm handing over to Dr. Marotta to initiate the whole process. He'll introduce me, and then I'll give a few second speech, and the meeting could proceed.
Okay, no problem, yeah.
All right.
Hi, Professor Tripathi.
Hi, Professor Giovanni Marotta. How are you?
Fine. Trying to update. Hi, Brenda. How are you doing?
Hi, we can see.
Let me have a new professor.
Let me just find an office, an empty place to sit in. I'm at work.
Okay.
Sorry. Just need to find a peaceful place. Yeah.
I can see Professional Tony Raymond Kirabira joining from Netherlands. Okay, over to you, Dr. Giovanni Marotta.
Okay. Tony Kira. Hi, everyone. Have the checking. Hi, Tony. How you doing? I'm checking all the audios. Everyone is working well.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you again in this event. Now we are going to continue our conversation related to the Africa and the International Criminal Court. Is Africa appropriately charged? Hello to everyone around the world that is connecting with us through Zoom and through YouTube all around the world. So now I'm going to introduce the participants of today's meeting. We have Manrit Kaur. She is the assistant to counsel at the International Criminal Court. We also have Brenda Grace Okot. She's an international attorney based in Sweden. We have Tony Kravira, also an international lawyer. I think he's based in the Netherlands, in The Hague.
Hello.
Hello. Also, we have Victoria Renzo. She's a lawyer at the Canadian Institute for International Expertise. Also, we have here, but he is from the hospital. He has a little bit surgery, but he's okay. He's with us. He's a fighter for the international law. Professor Milton. He's the founder and director of the Center for International Criminal Justice Africa, that is in charge of these events. Also from Argentina, we have Enzo Finocchiaro. He is the director of the International Criminal Law Journal, ID Editors. It's a very known journal in Latin America related to law, in every field. And also he's a professor of the International Criminal Law at the San Carlos de Guatemala University and at the Argentinian Social Museum University. Then we have Professor Dawar Kanath Sripath. He's an excellent professor of international law at the Symbiosis International University in India, if I am correct. Then we have Alessandra Lanciotti. She is a professor of international and European law in the Perugia University. Then we're going to have also Arthur Traldi. He's an international legal advisor for the legal and investigative strategies in investigation mass atrocity crimes. He also is a former prosecutor at the YCTA tribunals. Also, we're going to have Professor Hamid Al-Jumali. He's also an international criminal attorney. And I introduced myself at the end. I'm Giovanni Marotta. I work for the International Criminal Court against child kidnapping as an attorney, and we are related for the cases where childs are involved in parental child kidnapping between divorced parents, and also we are entering the field with trying to combat back all kind of abuse that are against children, human trafficking, child labor, and all the rights against children. So we start. I pass the microphone to Professor Milton so he can introduce today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Marotta, for that erudite presentation. As Dr. Marotta has indicated, I'm Professor Dr. Milton. I hold a PhD in International Criminal Law. I'm the founder director of Center for International Criminal Justice in Africa. I welcome you to today's session. We have a panel of experts, very erudite and well accomplished in their respective areas of teaching, academia, and scholarship. Today's topic is Africa and the International Criminal Court. This is a topic that has generated considerable controversy over a period of time, and we hope that with the aid of our experts, they are going to ventilate quite crucial issues. We know that the literature of the law has been very slow in presenting and interpreting the various themes that affect the themes related to international criminal justice in Africa. And the dearth of that knowledge is accentuated by the jurisprudence which has not been well developed within the tethering stages of the International Criminal Court. But we hope our experts are going to unveil all the scenarios in all this to approach it in the bid as scholars to be able to counter anything that is inimical, anything that is not in consonance with the interests of international criminal justice. Owing to my help, I hand over the hosting of the program to Dr. Giovanni Marotta, who will conduct the session all through. Thank you for this time. If you don't see me, I'll feature again towards the end as I'm attending the medical emergency. Over to you, Dr. Marotta. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No problem. I'm here for assistance.
All right. Go ahead, Marotta.
Yes. Today, as told before, we are going to have some rounds related to the Africa and International Criminal Court. Is Africa appropriately target? So from my colleagues that are more entitled to the African issue related to the ICC, I want some opinions about that. What do you think? That if it's really the way that the International Criminal Court is approaching all the litigation related to the cases of the African continent. What do you think about that? Because if you see in the way the ICC or the prosecutor office take the cases, sometimes there are I don't know, if we do a research, we can see that there are like complaints that they have more than 15 years in the office of the prosecutor, and they don't have already start an investigation. So what do you think that we need to re-engineer the method of how to approach the way the complaints arrive to the prosecutor office of the ICC? Because if you see, for example, in Sudan, as I recall, when I was working for the Andean Commission of Jurists, I have a project over there. It's going to be like 12 years ago, or it may be more. It was 2007. It was by the Canadian Ministry of Justice Fund. We have an investigation over there, and as I recall, there were many cases related to human rights violations in Sudan. I feel shame that we discover a lot of our investigations in that, because we made a course, and we thought at that time that with all the information, with all the docket files, that I think at that time Moreno was the general prosecutor of the ICC office. I mean, all the files arrived there, and I don't know, like 4 or 3 years ago, he began to start investigations and began the trials, not focusing on government, head of government, because in there we have another problem about the ICC, about immunity, but under the formula of joint criminal enterprise, I mean the low levels, that they should be trialed very much quicker. And if you see in the webpage, we are now seeing the trialing. So after, I don't know, they have information 2006, 2007. I mean, in my opinion, it's too slow. What do you think about that? Do we need a re-engineering? We need to not only for to I don't know, speed it up a little more. I make that question for all the audience. What do you think? That we need to rearrange the way the prosecutor office works? It should be like the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. They don't have a prosecutor office. They have a commission that that receive the cases and they automatically pass it to the courts if the case proceed. What do you think? Because after all this, I don't know, the court started 2002, it's going to be 70 years. The world has changed. As we spoke in the other conversations, also like by Professor Shibati, the court needs to evolve. I mean, there are a lot of crimes, international crimes, and we are not going to see crimes like we see in the past. I mean, the courts of Rwanda and the courts from the former ex-Yugoslavia, I mean, they are going to be the last type of mass atrocity crimes. Now we are going to see new types of crimes. So even though in Africa there still remains of in a few countries of international mass atrocity crimes that we are seeing done by terrorist groups, or in Asia, or what is going on. Also, it's not the topic here, but I will bring it. That's what happened in Latin America, in Venezuela or in Colombia, that needs to be investigated. For example, in the year 2 years ago, or was no 2000. It was in 2019. There was the Commission of Lima. They decided to make an indictment against the President Maduro before the ICC for international criminal violations. But the point here is, and I want all you, the experts, what is your opinion? Is we need, or for in Africa, to have, or for the African Union to have a commission. I don't know if for pushing up the investigations in Sudan or other parts in Africa, for example, related to human trafficking, child labor, that are international crimes, for make the pressure to the prosecutor office to start investigation, or we need to reinvent. We need to, as I told before, to do a re-engineering of how the court works, because in my humble opinion, it's too slow. I mean, it's for international crimes. It's too slow, and sometimes international criminals they die before they get a final ruling, or they disappear, or they try to be in the political arena to try to be a president or to try to be something, so they can avoid the international prosecutor related to international diplomatic immunity. So, what do you think, Professor Sripati?
Of course, I have been already introduced to the panelists here. A big hello to all the panelists, and I wish Dr. Milton a quick recovery so that he can hold more such discourses in the field of international criminal law. Now, coming to this, it's a issue not only for the African countries, but also for the world. The whole world is watching this conflict between Africa, African continent, and the ICC, because the outcome of this conflict will have repercussions on the state parties of ICC in the near future. So all the states are watching this conflict. Now, about 3 weeks back, I did speak a little about this conflict between ICC and the African countries, and why the discontentment has come. Now, the African countries were very supportive of the ICC when the statute was being negotiated and deliberated. They were very enthusiastic because of the long-standing conflict that they have in the various countries in Africa. They felt that a universal court would help them tide over this kind of turmoil that is taking place on the African continent. And in fact, Senegal was the first state to ratify the statute. So the first state to ratify the statute comes from the African continent. So you can clearly understand the kind of support that the African countries initially gave to the ICC. But somehow, after 2009, the relations between the African continent and the ICC nosedived. This is because of certain drawbacks or flaws in the statute of the ICC, which empowers the prosecutor to take up investigations. Now, if we really go into statistics, out of the 10 investigations that have been taken up by ICC, 9 investigations are in respect of the African heads of state. Of course, 3 of these have come voluntarily, or in other words, the states have voluntarily referred the matters to the ICC. That is the Democratic Republic of Congo, Uganda, and the Central African Republic. So as far as these 3 countries are concerned, there is no issue because they have voluntarily referred the matter to the ICC. But however, when it comes to Sudan, Kenya, and then Libya. Now, in respect of Kenya and Libya, the Security Council has referred the matter to the ICC. So this referral by the Security Council has been blamed by the African countries. They say that the Security Council is not exercising its powers of deferral because there have been many requests from the African countries and the African Union to the Security Council to defer certain trials for a 12-month period. And the Security Council did not take into consideration any of these requests and refused to act upon such requests. So this is another factor that did not really go well with the African countries. They felt that the Security Council was being partial towards Africa. In the sense, African countries are being targeted by the Security Council. Now, the same argument goes for the prosecutor's office of the ICC, even the prosecutor. Now, in the case of Kenya, the prosecutor himself took up the investigation into the conflict in Kenya. So, in this manner, there has been a lot of interest on the part of the ICC in African affairs. Now, there are conflicts in other countries, in other parts of the world. The ICC can take it up. But till 2016, investigations have been related only to Africa. And in 2016, the only investigation outside Africa was with regard to Georgia, which the ICC took up. But prior to that, it was only Africa and Africa alone. So, Where is this dissonance coming? Now, the African Union, which formally replaced the Organization of African Unity in July 2002, has rejected certain warrants that have been issued against the African heads of states by the ICC. Now, the African Union's legal position is incumbent heads of non-party states are entitled to immunity from arrest in third states under customary international law. It argues that the immunity subsists irrespective of the nature of the crimes. Now, what this particular argument of the African states or the African Union sends across the message is that it is a customary rule of international law that heads of states have immunity, state immunity. And particularly more so in the case of non-state parties. So ICC cannot proceed against such non-state parties because the ICC would be violating the customary rule of international law. And apart from that, the Rome Statute also recognizes this limitation because Article 98 of the Rome Statute, if I may, for the benefit of the audience, read what Article 98 of the Rome Statute says. The court may not proceed with a request for surrender or assistance which would require the requested state to act inconsistently with its obligations under international law with respect to the state or diplomatic immunity of a person or property of a third state, unless the can first obtain the cooperation of that third state for the waiver of the immunity. Now, this particular argument has come out of one particular incident, that is the state of Sudan, where Omar al-Bashir, the president of Sudan, an arrest warrant was issued by the International Criminal Court to arrest him while he was traveling to different states, the African continent. The African states, as parties to the statute, have an obligation to arrest him and surrender him to the ICC. But because of a non-cooperation movement that was in countries, in order to oppose the partiality that is being shown by the ICC against the African countries, none of these states arrested al-Bashir. And when the ICC questioned, this was the answer, saying that Article 98 is very clear that a third state is not under to surrender a fugitive or an accused person to the ICC. For that to happen, the ICC has to first take the permission of the third state. That is, it has to take the permission of Sudan. And then if Sudan allows or agrees for the arrest of al-Bashir, if he is found on a third state, then the third state may arrest him and surrender him to the ICC. But otherwise, it cannot happen. And this will not happen. So this is one. So with regard to the immunity and the African states also tried to, submit a kind of a petition to the General Assembly to request the ICJ for its advisory opinion in respect of state immunity. That is in respect of Article 98 of the Statute of ICC. Kenya, on behalf of all the African states, had requested the General Assembly to seek an advisory opinion from the International Court of Justice. But however, this was denied by the General Assembly. So what is required for the African? They must take the support of all the other states which are parties to the statute of ICC, and that is the assembly of countries. That support must come for all the African countries, and then probably they should put it before the General Assembly, seek an advisory opinion from the International Court of Justice, because that would be of great help. Because in the past, if you see, as far as international law is concerned, uh, the ICJ has given certain landmark advisory opinions. For example, in the case of United Nations reparation of injuries case, the General Assembly sought an advisory opinion from the International Court of Justice, requesting the court to give an opinion whether the international organization like UNO has international legal personality or not. So the court gave a landmark advisory opinion stating that uh, the organization does have national legal personality because of the enormous responsibility that has been vested with the UN. And by virtue of this advisory opinion, the United Nations organization was able to claim compensation from the state of Israel. So that is the effect of an advisory opinion. Similarly, in respect of the Genocide Convention in 1949, a landmark advisory opinion was given by the International Court of Justice. And then again, in the case of the status of Southwest Africa, which is today Namibia, it its independence in 1980. From a trust territory, it became an independent nation. So the uh, African countries have to, uh, what you say, take the support of the other countries. Now, coming to the Security Council's referral, the Security Council referrals powers are being misused by the Security Council, and the African countries clearly feel that a lot of partiality is being shown by the Security Council towards Africa by targeting the African heads of states. Here also, a proposal has been submitted by all African countries, members of the statute of ICC, and the proposal clearly says that where if the Security Council does not act upon a request of the request of a deferral within a period of 6 months from the date of the request, then the power of deferral should revert to the General Assembly. The General Assembly shall exercise the power. Now, this is something similar to a resolution that was passed by the General Assembly in the year 1950. The resolution is named Uniting for Peace Resolution, where if the Security Council fails to maintain international peace and security in the world, then the General Assembly is empowered to take up the responsibility of maintaining international peace and security in the world. So this proposal by the ICC members coming from the African continent, very, what you say, correct, and legally they are very sound in submitting such a proposal. And then when a kind of a situation came where the ICC and the African countries could negotiate and come to an understanding, there was a possibility, but the prosecutions that were ordered by the ICC in respect of Sudan, Kenya, and Libya further this friendly environment. So whatever possibility there was of a negotiation between the African countries and the ICC was totally destroyed because of the prosecutions ordered. So What the African countries, as I stated earlier, were very enthusiastic uh, in establishing the ICC. And the question is, what kind of a court did they expect at the time of the negotiations and the deliberations? They wanted a court that would be independent, that would be universal, that would be based upon the principle of sovereign equality of states, which is clearly laid down under Article 2, Clause 1 of the United Nations Charter. So this is what they expected. And then the independency of the court. Now, the prosecutor's office is also kind of independent. Somehow, the African countries have felt that the prosecutor's office has done a lot of injustice to him by uh, irrationally ordering investigations into the activities of certain heads of states in Africa. So these issues have caused a lot of heartburn for the African countries. And despite all this, I still feel that ICC needs the support of the African countries. Fine if the African countries can come together, negotiate and deliberate, and of course ask for certain amendments to be made to the statute, like how amendments are made to the United Nations Charter of the General Assembly and the Security Council. Similarly, the Assembly of State Parties can, through a voting procedure of 2/3 majority of 4 members present and voting, can amend the statute so that the statute more friendly to all countries, not African countries alone, but all countries which are parties of the ICC statute. So this kind of thing, if it can be worked out, that would be wonderful for international law. And I sincerely hope that such an outcome will probably emerge in the near future. And I would be the happiest person if it happens. So this is what I have to say. And I thank the organizer of this discourse, Professor Dr. Milton, for giving me another opportunity to present my views on ICC and Africa. And I also thank the de facto organizer, Professor Giovanni Marotta, for inviting me to speak. And I thank all the other panelists who have very patiently listened to my opinion on Africa and ICC. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Shripati. It's glad to to have another professor across the world that have the same way of view that since I was a bachelor student about the international criminal law issues and in the human rights. So it's nice to know that I was no solo thinker or because sometimes when you argue with Professor Sripati, the point of view with the professors in the university, they are they're like sacred cows or dinosaurs that they say no, what you're talking about, no, you're crazy. So it's good to have professors with that kind of view and that that brings to be us more sensible and to try to be like I don't know if you remember that series that TV series in the 80s MacGyver, that we as international lawyers we need to be like him, to try to bring quickly solutions to the problems that are really happening there. So continuing with this meeting, I would like to hear a little more about Tony, that he's right now a visiting professional in the International Criminal Court. But what from the inside? I mean, he's an insider right now. He's in the field. From his point of view, what have spoke Professor Shipati, from all this knowledge that we have received right now, from your part, the work you are doing in the ICC. What do you think about this? I mean, how do you see the prosecutor office? I mean, how do you see the judges, the attitude? How we need that kind of information, because you are in there. I mean, you're in the field. You're in the touch. Like in the US, you're the ball receiver. You're going to make the touchdown. So it's important to see how in this time you are working in there. How do you see it?
Well, thank you so much. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes.
I appreciate this great deliberation. And Professor Milton, I hope you feel better soon. Well, I should be clear that I do not hold any views of the court.
Okay.
Yes, I do not hold any views of the court. This should be my own perspective. I entirely appreciate the views, especially the political views, about the work of the court in Africa and the legitimacy, because legitimacy is really fundamental for any institution that seeks to provide justice. However, my only point of agreement, disagreement with Professor Sripathi is I would prefer to look at the actors of the institution holistically. And with actors, I mean, of course, the state parties, and of course, the discourse, most of the discourse about legitimacy is from the state parties, but also the civil society, the lawyers, and more important to me, the victims. So it would really be interesting to hear if the victims' discourse is also negative about the court itself. Otherwise, the dominant discourse from the political actors and the states, of course, international law, the states, of course, it will always make the headlines. But to me, I'm more concerned that, okay, if we prioritize the views of the politicians of the states as just one actor, we miss out the other actors in the picture. And to me, I think that's the primary goal, especially for the victims, in my opinion. If we are able to have an institution that at least is a little bit more leaning towards the victims, in my opinion, then we could still need it for Africa.
Okay. Any more ideas to support what Tony has explained for us? I mean, Brenda or Professor Tulungana?
Dr. Marotti, you'll excuse.
Yes.
I've just seen Professor F. Frimpong, Dean of Law School in Ghana, is part of the team.
Okay.
And I'm leaving it up to you to control the hosting, but I just wanted to officially introduce him over there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
This is Professor Dr. Milton here. Just go ahead. So,
Okay,
Dr.
no
Marotti,
problem.
go ahead with the hosting. Yeah.
Yes. What do you think, to the panelists, Brenda? What do you think about what Tony has explained to us?
Yeah, thank you so much for this privilege. And
Sorry, sorry again.
it's okay.
Just for interruption,
No
we
problem.
also have a prominent personality who has come in there is Pastor Dulungana. So just to let you know of their presence. Hand
Okay,
over
yes.
back to the host, to the presenter. Sorry, Brenda. Thank you very much.
It's well.
No problem.
Thank you.
Welcome, Pastor Dulungana.
Yes, it's quite a privilege, I think, for us to sit on this forum and really discuss this matter, because from my view and from the little that I've been hearing, it has been a lot of complaint. And I would like to agree with what Tony just said, that it is the political views that has escalated all this, because there are a lot of African states that think that this court was made against them. But again, I go back to Professor Sipathe, who said probably the expectation at the time of ratification of the ICC for the African states were not very clear to understand, and it would really be good if we could, if there's a way of amending so that every party, every state party is happy and everything is consolidated to suit the situations that we are having. Definitely, there's a lot of criminal issues in Africa more than here, and there's a lot also in Europe and everywhere. But then it has to be looked at broadly. And when it comes to cases that are taking so long, definitely that is also another point which makes the political views take over, because you find that cases are being taken into the ICC and then they take so long. The investigation is done in a way that nobody understands very well. So there's a bit to improve when it comes to the ICC and how it is handling its cases. And that is, I think, something very clear to everybody. How we are going to improve it is now upon us to push the fire from down and see if we can get help. But otherwise, the political views is taking over so much when it comes to the African states against the ICC. I think I don't have much to add, and I've taken in a lot of views that I'm going to look into, discuss it with one of the professors who is, I think maybe any of you there could know, Professor Alex Odora Obote, who has worked with the ICC for long. He's an elderly guy living, and he has been teaching at the University of Stockholm. Next time, probably, if we can get an insight from him as well, because he's written a lot of books and done a lot of research within the ICC and worked with the Rwanda and so on, that would really give us also some input. And we need those wisdoms from the elderly people who started probably to help us as well. Thank you. And thanks for the wonderful discussions.
Thank you, Brenda. I also agree with you. We need to always go to the elders, because they have the experience and they were the ones who have the vision. So it is important always to show respect and knowledge that sometimes nowadays we don't see that very much, but I think it's important, because the experience is what in the legal field is the more important thing. More than the knowledge is the knowledge, of course, because the knowledge gives you the foundations, the thinking, the sensible how to approach, but the experience is the more important thing, because that's how, as always, as we are being in the law students, always you see these the clients when you were I don't know intern, they always look for the old lawyer, because they want the one who has the more experience, so they want to succeed in the case. Okay, thank you, Brenda. Any other one wants to give an opinion about what Brenda and Professor Shipati and attorney Tony had said?
Yes, of course. He has been very brief.
Yes.
Go
ahead, Professor Shipati.
Been very brief, but there's a lot of message in it, in his brief discourse. Because I sincerely feel that there is a lot of politics involved. So the African nations would do well if they can garner political support from countries all over the world. Now, even in respect of the arrest warrant issued by ICC against al-Bashir of Sudan, two-thirds of the international community were not happy with the arrest warrant. A few Western countries had forced the ICC to issue the warrant. So this means that the African countries do have the sympathy of the other countries in the international community. And apart from that, the now when we speak of discontentment among the African nations, it is not all countries which are against ICC. There are countries in Africa which are in support of ICC. Only those countries against whose heads of state the ICC has started prosecutions, they are against. But there are other countries which want ICC, they would like to be members of ICC, and they support ICC. So my uh, idea of bringing a solution to this conflict between the ICC and the African countries would be to somehow bring those African countries which are against ICC and the ICC officials to sit and negotiate, deliberate, and then think of a solution. And this, of course, involves a lot of politics. And then, as pointed out by Tony Raymond, the victims of the conflicts in these countries also have a voice to speak. Their voice also must be heard. Probably that will help the countries in getting the support of the other nations in the world. So this is what I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Sripati. Well, this is true. Whatever related to the international arena, there has been a lot of political issues over there. We have seen it, for example, from the U.S. Trying to boycott the prosecutor officers that were going to travel for some investigations related to Afghanistan. And in the other hand, we have the British British government trying to backbone the ICC. So here also, I mean, it's like a sort of I think like we are going to enter in the international level probably in a Cold War. I mean, because some will try to support the international rule of law, others will say no, it's against our freedom of jurisdiction and how the way we try our crimes. But in the end, globalization will continue. We are getting more and more global under COVID-19. We are more global, even though this pandemic has made us more globally connected. So so what we need to see is that under this discourse related to Africa, I mean, it's going to happen. It's not only going to be in Africa. Probably something like this that we are discussing right now in a couple of I mean the next year or two, we are going also to see that related to Latin American again with Venezuela case and what is going on in Asia with Rohingya displacement and also with the part of what is going on with Israel and Palestine. So the idea is that what I can see here is that as Tony has told us, is the way that we need to approach is how the community, the society see the International Criminal Court. They have like we are scholars, we do the research, we know what is going on right now, but the civil society they have another perspective. How I know this, because one of the cases that we handle here in my organization in Isaac, a parent thought that because his during the divorce proceeding was a very violent divorce proceeding, and the mother decided to take the kid and disappear with the kid from Spain, and she went to the U.S. He thought that it was like an international crime, so he went to the prosecutor office. Okay, he's a very wise guy. He do some readings. He's not a lawyer, but the first thing he knew, okay, my child kidnapping has been kidnapped or abducted by her mother. So who is entitled to international, an abduction is considered a crime, international criminal court. So as Tony has told us before, there is this feeling from civil society that the court means something. As an international criminal court, they're doing something. So we need to use that. We are as from our fields, Tony in the ICC, Milton and Professor Sripati from the research, or also from the practice of law. We need to endure that feeling in our work. So we need to, by writing, doing these conversations, trying to, I don't know, we can, I don't know, we can do an investigation and try to give this investigation and support for the ICC, like a recommendation, like an amicus curiae or a memorandum of law for the ICC. So it's important to see that in the Africa community, in the African Federation, as Tony explained us, the way that the victims. So we need the voice also of them. I mean, there is, I don't remember to see many research related to the voice of the victims, how they, or the civil society, how they see the international criminal justice as a whole. So I think that's a very important issue. For example, here we have a pastor Dulungana. So from a religion point of view, how they see it's important also from them how they see.
Hello, Dr. Marotti.
Yes,
Sorry
I'm
for
here.
disrupting.
No problem.
There's also a hand raised by Professor K. Frimpong.
Okay.
I don't know whether you're able to see it on your screen.
Yes, I see it. Yes.
I was just drawing your attention, Grant. If you're
Yes,
able
thank
to
you.
go.
Okay, we pass to Professor Frimpong. Professor.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
we
sound
can.
and clear. Yes, we can.
Oh, thank you very much. How are you?
Fine.
Fine, we are fine.
I'm sorry I joined late. Yes, I'm currently in the US, so I was having my morning nap.
Yes. In which part from the US you are right now?
I'm in Atlanta.
Yes, you are. Yeah.
Georgia.
Yes,
So Milton, it's not true that I'm still a dean. I have come to the end of my service. I think I am too old to continue. So thank you. Personally, I've not been very comfortable with the way the African Union is reacting to the ICC. And I thank the previous speaker who noted that a section of Africa supports ICC, a section doesn't. Those who don't, I think, are being hypocritical. the argument that ICC is targeting Africans, I don't think it's a valid point. At the end of the day, we are the victims. The ICC is trying to protect us. You refer to victims' rights are not being taken care
Correct.
of. So instead of the suggestion that we should have a negotiation, I think there should be a movement within the African community to compel our leaders who are, in quote, dictators, abusers, and they rule with impunity, that ICC should have the opportunity to prosecute them, because within Africa, I say, we are not. Had there not been this revolution in Sudan, al-Bashir would have gone free. And such cases demand that we should have a external body that will be able to address those abuses. Take, for instance, if one African is attacked in China, anywhere, you see the entire African continent coming together to fight for the right of such African. But within the continent itself, if a dictator is killing millions, thousands, it doesn't mean anything. So in fact, I wrote in the paper in Ghana some time ago that the AU's version of Black Lives Matter suggests that they respect the life of one African outside Africa, whereas within Africa, they turn a blind eye if thousands are being slaughtered. So I think it's through such discussions and other group participation like NGOs and others that we can compel African countries to accept the reality that ICC, even if it is only dealing with African countries, we should accept that they are not witch hunting. They are dealing with real cases where African citizens are being maltreated or do not have access to justice. So that is one area that I think we should take a very strong stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Yes, it's important also what Professor Frimpong has told us. I mean, and that's also in the trend as Professor Shripati started at this beginning. So we need to from, I mean, this is not only is going to happen to the African Union. I mean, this is going to happen all around the globe. As what I spoke now, because I was more connected to cases in Latin America with the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights. There are also, as I told you, the last it was the pressure of the Council of Lima, that was Canada, I think Chile, Argentina, Colombia. They decided to do an indictment against Maduro because of all the atrocities that's going over there, and the ICC is cross arms. I mean, so as I began this the introduction of this discourse, I think in some point the way the prosecutor office of the ICC or the ICC itself needs to change. I mean, it's too slow. I mean, it's too bureaucratic. I mean, it should be more quicker. I mean, there are too many standards, bureaucratic standards for accepting the criminal complaints. I mean, there are, I guess, if there should be for, I don't know, I don't know how the prosecutor office works in the ICC, but there should be for every country, for every region, trying to update how to filter the case and do the investigations. I mean, they are eager in for example, I don't know, I pick an example, country X, they have an international crimes. Okay, it goes a complaint, then the complaint received in the ICC, and the ICC automatically connects with some prosecutor, or even though any lawyer that can aid the information with the ICC. I don't know, it's I'm thinking out of the box, something like that. But what I see here, it's this, I don't know, that probably it will stay in the chambers of the prosecutor, I don't know, 15 years, and then okay, we have the indictment. Okay, we are going to investigate it. But I mean, that's crazy, because probably many of the victims will not see justice, and that's the idea of the ICC, is to reivindicate the victims. They will see justice because there was no investigation in their own countries against these international crimes. So so that's the as Professor Shipati and Professor Frimpong has told us, that there is some kind of hypocrisy, and that needs to be changed. And the only way to change is from I think the civil society, and if you're working in the ICC, trying to make some kind of small changes in your work, or trying to, because probably we will have colleagues in any organization that wants to see the justice system working. So that's the way I see it. Okay, anyone else wants to continue with another ideas about this discussion?
If you could allow me to add something.
Okay.
Yes, sure.
Yes, sure.
Professor Sripati, for example, what do you think in terms of solutions? Do you think hybrid international tribunals would be a good solution? Or maybe just one big tribunal that encompasses most of the states?
It worked for Sierra Leone, the hybrid tribunal that was established by the United Nations. In my first discourse, I had made a suggestion for the African countries that they can go for hybrid courts, where the judges would come from the national courts of the country, and also have international judges. And then the applicable law also would be the domestic law of the country where the dispute is, and the rules of international law also shall be applied. That is the treaties and conventions. It is something that the states can try. I frankly believe that there's no harm in giving it a try. And apart from the hybrid courts, the African countries have made so many other suggestions to have an alternative for ICC. One is they wanted an African regional criminal court. But because it could not be sustained, the idea was dropped. And then they also made a proposal of having an international criminal chamber in the African Court of Human Rights, to have an additional criminal chamber, but that also did not work. So a lot of suggestions are being made by the African countries, but even today I still feel that having one international court for international justice is the best form of justice that countries can have, instead of having regional courts, because again the problems would be regionalized. When we speak of universal international justice, we should have one court that can do justice to all the injustices that are taking place in the world. Even the crimes under the statute of the ICC are very limited. These crimes also must be expanded.
Good.
A lot more crimes that are being committed by individuals in other parts of the world should be under the jurisdiction of the court. Only then the court will become more powerful, more popular, and can sustain itself even in adversities. Thank you.
Thank you,
Well,
Professor Shripati.
well, I
Yes,
think I would, yes, I think I would like to support what the professor has just said. As for the hybrid system, I think it's just a, it's just a side way by the African countries to avoid the real fighting power of ICC. Because if you are going to have any country with a few international judges joining, at the end of the day, the question that arises, would that court have that kind of capacity and the competence to convict the head of state or anyone who is abusing his powers? And so, really, the ultimate authority with a universal power for the whole international community, as Professor suggesting, should be the ICC. And it requires the international community to give its fullest support. So the idea the US, for instance, doesn't want to be part and so forth should not be entertained. And I would suggest that the other members of the UN should put pressure on the US to be a full active member supporting ICC. And I think if we can do that through the UN, it's possible that we can eventually reach a stage where ICC can have the biting authority for jurisdiction in terms of abuses all over the world. Because if we go back to the Nuremberg trial, why was it successful? Because it had the support of all the international community. And I don't see why at this stage some countries should be backsliding. So that is what I would suggest. Thank you.
thank you, Professor Frimpton. Also, I agree with Professor Frimpton related that the U.S. should be an active participant of the ICC, like other countries, because I don't know, it's like a table of four. I see the ICC like a table of four legs, only with three legs, so it's not very stable. So I need the support of every country, even so that's the only way. And as Professor Shripati has announced it and told us in the previous conversation, the crime should be spread. I mean, that's the only way, because also when I start this conversation, the war is evolving every day. Every day we have new international crimes. For example, there was a news that was very creepy, that the the French police through Europol gave information to the Dutch police that there were like bunkers in Rotterdam, bunkers for torturing people. I mean, it was crime related to narcotics, I think drug smugglers, and they were preparing these bunkers with, I don't know, it was like uh, movie terror, because you have all these things scoped. They have this dentist chair for torturing someone, and it was this bunker was a voice was with these special things that if the guy scream, nobody hear it, and that's torture. And they encrypt the phones of these criminals. They started in February, March, and they 2 weeks ago they located all these installations in Rotterdam. And for example, that's because it is in a country where the rule of law works, but that kind of things happens every day in Mexico, and no one's give a damn thing, and the Mexican people are afraid to be, I mean, everyone can be past that horrible and terrifying crimes. About it was 3 weeks ago, you know, I'm trying this example of Mexico because Mexico, they have this violence over this, I mean, since their Independence Day until now, there is a lot of violence. And 2 weeks ago, they tried to murder the Ministry of I think it was the Ministry of Justice, of the Interior. I don't know which one, and it was in the DF, because the narco war was in the north or in the south. It was in the north in Monterrey, and or in the south in Chiapas, where the drug lords, they keep by themselves. But no, this in this case, the target was the secretary, I mean the Ministry of Interior, the Secretary of Security of the whole country, and the mercenaries, because they were mercenaries, they were equipped with very heavy machinery of war. I mean, they have only weapons that you see for the army. And for example, the drug smuggling, international, I don't know, smuggling, international kidnapping, should be considered international crimes. Is the only way, because, for example, in Mexico, it could be, if the ICC will have more broad crimes, these criminals could be brought to the ICC. All these the drug lords like Del Chapo, that could be tried in the ICC bring peace or something to, or the vindication of the victims in Mexico. And also, that is related, that we are going to discuss in the next session, next Friday, is the violence against children and women. So so that's true. So that's the reality. So I think also I agree with Professor Sripati of the crimes. I mean, it's too narrow right now. It's too narrow, the crimes that are in the Rome Statute. So it should be open up for more crimes. So, and also as Professor Frimpong told us, that U.S. should be an active member. Let's see if in this next administration in the U.S., I don't know if Biden wins or Trump, they will have a new perspective related to the ICC. Okay, so someone else wants to add more?
Small parting comment.
Okay, go on.
I had mentioned in my last discourse on
yes.
ICC and USA that ICC needs the support of a powerful country like the US. I don't know why US is keeping away from ICC. US has played a very active role, a very active part, not only in respect of ICC, but so many other institutions that were established. For example, right from 1920, when the League of Nations was established, US played a very important part. But when it came to ratifying, it just went back. And because of lack of support from US, the League of Nations faced a lot of problems, which Adolf Hitler took advantage, and ultimately in 1939, the League was dissolved. Then again, with regard to the 1982 Law of the Sea Convention, the US was at the forefront. Because of certain seabed binding provisions which were against its interests, it refused to ratify. So these things happen. So what I still feel, US must support ICC. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sripati. Yes, yeah, we all agree that the US needs to support the ICC, and that's the true. As Professor also Frimpong told us about the Nuremberg trials, it was the whole world that was behind that. All these international criminals should pass through justice, and I mean that's the only way that we as a whole world each country, no matter how big or how small it is, we need to be forward to accomplish all the um, how do you say, all the principles and all the ideas that were brought in the draft of the ICC. I don't know. It's going to be 30 years from now when it starts to the idea back in the 19th, before establishing this as a court. So that's true. I mean, all the world should be united. And that's why we have the UN, and was created after this horrible event that happens 80 years ago, still more, 83, 84, 83 years ago when it started. So that's true. Well, anybody else wants to add something to these great presentations that we're having today?
Well, maybe one minor point I would like to add to Professor Shepati's strong argument in favor of US joining. If we look at what transpired within the past couple of weeks with the George Floyd's death and the way the all sectors of US started demonstrating, I think sooner or later that kind of trend is going to emerge where the liberal majority within the country will come to the realization that the US cannot operate by being discriminatory even within the international community. For instance, if they believe in the rule of law, human rights, and all that domestically, then obviously they must also recognize that rule of law must operate within the international community, because basically the rationale behind US refusal to participate in the ICC is that American citizens will be targeted, just as some African countries are saying African countries are being targeted. But if you look at the way that uh, the American public is strongly against the idea of allowing the police to have that kind of impunity against fellow citizens, I'm sure a lot of them will come to the realization that, yes, within the international community, Americans must also be treated equally like any other citizen of the world. So let's hope that, as Prof said, with the election coming, and God will help us so that someone more liberal will emerge victorious and maybe things may turn around. Because as he pointed out, US is actually withdrawing from almost any international community now. From climate, they are no longer there. From the law of the sea, they don't want to be there. So where else? If the US is the leader in the world, particularly having the UN seat within the US, then obviously they must take the leadership role to ensure that there is rule of law at every stage within the international community. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Frimpong. Yeah, that's true. I mean, what happened, I mean, it's going to be a month of Floyd's death. That's all the reaction around the US about all the US citizen. Doesn't matter the race, even it was amazing to see this extremist white supremacy against the police actions of the liberties of Mr. Floyd. I mean, is that the liberals in the U.S. will need to use that energy So if they want, because there's a group of liberals under the Democrat Party that they want to be part of, the U.S. need to be again actively back in the UN, be part of the ICC. So I think it's important that once again the U.S. Be part of the international rule of law community, because in these couple of years, of this under these Trump administrations related to the international diplomat relations and the way the justice have been from the in the U.S. We have seen that uh, uh, they have I mean they have not going very well. They have been under development issues inside their community. Also, I mean, it was not Floyd. Also, I mean, during the Trump administration, after I mean, Floyd it have been the more recently, but I think since Trump has been heading the presidency, there have been some kind of riots also related to injustices happening in the U.S. So I think this is the moment. If the U.S. want to be part of the ICC, the liberal wing of the Democratic Party, they should try to push that. If Biden assumes the presidency in next January, he should be, I don't know, have the flag of the U.S. return to the international community. Or if Trump again wins the election, he will need to settle and try to engage again the leadership of the international community and be part of the UN, because the way he has been dealing the aspects of the US and the international community have been a disaster. So I mean, he's more a businessman rather than a political. Yes, he's very good. I mean, shoemaker. He's a shoemaker. Fisher is a fisher. I mean, everyone should be doing what they are. But for the policy, this guy was not good. For doing business, I mean, he's I mean, he has a very brilliant mind. But for being a president, I mean, it's not too good. I mean, he's like a.
It is again for the American public to.
Yes, of course. Yeah,
American public has to take a decision whether to bring.
Yes, that's true. But but you know, I was trying to see how the elections work in the U.S. It's very strange how they win the elections. I mean, it's from the districts. I mean, it's
the electoral college is the problem.
Yes. Correct. Exactly.
That is not democratic. Even though they not at all.
Yes, because I mean, it's
you can win the popular vote, but you cannot be the president.
Exactly. Yeah.
One fact which really confused me was during the canvassing for the elections when Trump won the elections. Prior to that, his own partymen, the Republicans, were against him.
Oh yeah.
He won the election.
Yeah.
So I find it very strange.
Yes, of course.
I find it very strange.
Yes.
Yes. There is a. I recommend to everyone in Netflix. I don't remember. I will pass Professor Milton the name of the documentary so they can pass it to everyone. It was related to this British firm related to publicity, that they crack all the system through Facebook to try to reach every voter, and they gave fake news, and that's how
Trump won. Yeah.
Yes, Trump won the elections. So that's the information of the data protection. So another international, it could be another international crime. You know, I mean, because Great Britain through this it was a foreign firm from a foreign country. who invades the elections of a country, and you know, it won the other guy that was supposed not to win. So yeah, that's why it's important that after the election in the US, all these data protection all around the world began to run very quickly. There is also in the EU in 2018 new legislation related to data protection after what they saw what happened in the US. And then I think the US in the 2019 they have this new act related to data protection. So I will send you the I will enter to my Netflix account, and I will send the name to Professor Milton of the documentary, so they can send everyone, so that you can see what to understand a little more what happened with Trump in this last election. And also it says that Bolsonaro, the actual president of Brazil, have the same company running his elections of the 2 years ago. So so probably yeah, they know how to manipulate. Yeah, because of fake news, if you receive they target the voter, I mean, who is going to make the winning at the end, and they bombard it through their Facebook accounts or Twitter or I don't know, all this fake news, and he decide, and that's the way they decide to, as Professor Frimpon said, that the district college the district college is, it's not democratic at
Electoral
all.
college.
Yes, electoral college is not democratic at all. And if you have the electoral college plus you know how it works, and you send the fake news, you know the one who is going to win. So that's could be another discussion for if internet phishing or cracking and hacking should be considered international crime. For my part, yes, but we can also have another conversation about if the kind of crimes of phishing, cracking, hacking, fake news we consider under the RAM statute in the future, for I know from 15 years. But that is a very interesting point of view. Okay, so anyone else wants to add?
Yes.
Ah, yes, yes, Brenda. Yes, I was in your, yeah, I saw your hand, but I didn't see it in the. I mean, you're driving. Yeah, okay, no problem.
Yes, I'm driving. You know,
Yes.
Sweden did not go to lockdown, so we are
Yes.
working as normal. Yeah,
Yes.
I was just saying, much as we are focusing on the UK, the US, which I believe is now a society which is probably more ripe for us to win this, because the society in US seem to be more ripe than ever. And if this is brought up properly, I think they will second it. But my point is, African leaders, as one of our professors said earlier on, they are supposed to be targeted, more especially the political head of states, because they are the ones who are safeguarding themselves from the ICC and end up sending out a very wrong image to the society.
Yes.
And in that way, people have a totally different perspective of what the ICC is meant for, wherever it is meant for our good. But we, the leaders, are turning it against the ICC, so that everybody focuses on something else, covering their back, because most of them are dictators. Most of them are doing wrong. So as we focus on the US, we should focus to our African leaders, because this is for our own good. It is our own justice we are looking for, but it should not be. So I don't know how we shall do it, but this message has to cut across, so that the African leaders know, the people who are the citizens are the ones who should make the decision, not the leaders themselves, because for them, they know what they're protecting. Thank you. That was all.
Okay. Thank you, Brenda. Yes, that's true. In Sweden, they don't have lockdown as in around the world.
No.
But you don't have the problems that other countries with lockdown are having. I mean, the Sweden government approached very well how to attack the COVID-19. So, I mean, I think also other countries are adopting that measure. For example, the Netherlands, they open again, and Belgium, only that you need to, in the Netherlands it's mandatory, and like in Belgium, to use a face mask in public, like the trains, buses, or supermarkets. But
It's
then,
not even mandatory.
yes, that's
Sweden.
difference in Sweden. Yes, that's correct. I mean, the Netherlands and Belgium decided to open, but the only difference
Yes.
is that when you're outside your house, you need to use a face mask. That's mandatory. But in Sweden, as I saw in the news, it was a little bit more. I mean, it's a very strange virus behavior, how it's going in the world. I mean, it's like, I don't know, in every country you have a different way of spreading and reacting in the health of the people. Okay. Well,
Well, can I add
yes, of
something
course.
to what our sister just said? I think we need more than just this medium of discussion if we really want to engage our African leaders to be more proactive in terms of their relationship with ICC. Maybe Milton and others should start a more aggressive approach so that within Africa itself, we can start a movement which will now be targeting the African leaders who are refusing to be supportive of the ICC. Yes, because otherwise we are the victims. Our people are the ones who are being slaughtered. And so if within Africa itself, there should be a kind of organizational approach where we can also say that ICC is so essential for African continent to rid itself of dictators and those who trample upon the rights of the citizens. Maybe it can also have a effect instead of merely sitting down and having general discussions. Because I know, for instance, that we have a annual conference at Stellenbosch, and I've always been saying that, look here, it's not enough for us to come here and write papers and present papers when we are not actually moving beyond the academic discussion into the realm of social activism. So I think that's what I think the African academia should also be thinking about, instead of concentrating more about the ivory tower approach to things. I think it's about time. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Frimpong. Anyone else wants to add before we end?
One last comment from me. Through all these international discourses, I've been saying that the African countries which are against ICC must in fact support ICC, and then the USA must support ICC. However, the fact remains that my own country, India, is not a party to the statute. But then we do not have any conflict with the ICC. India does not have a conflict with the ICC.
But you're not, and the reason is more political, or?
It's political.
Yeah.
Now, all these decisions are politically driven decisions.
I see. So what are you doing about it, Prof, to ensure that we can get India on board? Is there any effort on your side or any group of scholars?
Uh, Actually, we have not made any effort to convince the government of India for signing the ICC statute.
I see.
But then there are no instances or incidents that have taken place in India that call for the intervention by the ICC. Whatever cases that have taken place is being competently handled by the highest court in the country, that is the Supreme Court of India. And of course, we do have the high courts in different states. So India never really felt, nor did India give a chance to the ICC to exercise its powers against India. Because we have seen Sudan not being a party to the state, but still the ICC started proceedings against Sudan. So that can happen to India also. India not being a party, but still ICC can, because ICC is universal jurisdiction against all individuals who are guilty of committing crimes. But however, in India, crimes that have been committed are not of that dimension, which may invite the interference of the ICC. So that is why we have not really made any effort to convince the government of India that the government must go and sign the Rome Statute.
That's interesting.
For that matter, China is not a party to the statute.
Yeah.
A powerful country like China has not signed the Rome Statute. India has not signed.
I think it is our duties, the duties of the scholars, to make ICC attractive and useful to everyone. And how we are going to do about it is what we should discuss, so that everybody understands that the ICC is not an enemy, but the ICC is for their own good. But for now, it is the political heads that are taking over, and that makes it very difficult for, for a day-to-day citizen to understand what is taking place. But if we make it attractive and go out there and let them see the use of the ICC, whereby cases are taken and they don't take years before they are solved, and the activeness of involving the victims and the witnesses and everything, it is seen as a clean thing. I think the society will be easily convinced and to turn their back to their leaders and demand. And a country like India, China would see the use, because I know those two cases you're talking about, that was very painful and really needed the intervention of the ICC. But because there are no members, there's no way. But the people on the ground probably don't know anything about this, because the ICC is kind of silent. And the cases, as you said earlier on, the area that it covers is so little. So it is not known. It's known to the scholars, but it's not known to the people on the ground. So that is where we should, as our professor said, we should find a way of going deep into the grassroots so people know what the ICC stands for and how much they can do to help them if they send out their cries and stand for it. And then India, with all those rape cases and so on, they will definitely understand and come out with it. Yeah, maybe that would work. So we need to look for those bodies or those strategic ways of approaching it, so that we let the ICC be attractive and understood. Otherwise, it looks like an enemy.
Correct. Yes, that's true. Because yes, the ICC needs like a public relations office, and scholars can be that public relation office to show to the civil society how it really works and how you can through the ICC kind of in a country that is not part of it under your universal jurisdiction can approach a case. So yeah, what Professor Shipati and yes, continue.
You know, I was
Yes,
just
go
saying,
on.
for example, in Sweden, much as it is a developed country, I could say the whole of Scandinavian, or there are very few people who know what the ICC does. They don't know what it means, apart
Yes.
from the lawyers. So it is really, really known only to the people who do the international criminal law and countries that have issues to do with the ICC. They are the only people who probably have an idea of what the ICC is. So there's a very huge need for us to let the ICC be known and what they do.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for having joined us today. Next, I will send you everyone an email for the event of next Friday. It is going to be the Women and Child and International Criminal Court, how it's been running the violence and the crimes against child and the woman, or how we will approach it. So thank you everyone with these excellent interviews that every Friday we are having. So next Friday at the same time and in the same place, we are going to have another round of conversations related to the women, children, and the International Criminal Court. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for all the audience. I will pass Professor Milton to approach the audience.
Thank you, Dr. Marotta, for that erudite presentation. I also want to recognize the participation, excellent participation, profoundly displayed by the intellectuals in this panel. Professor Shiripathy was been us, who was bagged over 30 years teaching international criminal law. Professor Frimpong, who has produced innumerable lawyers in this country. He happened to have dealt with me at the master's level. Thank you, the professional at the ICC Kiribati. Thank you, our colleague and friend, Brenda. And thank you, everybody else. We have Pastor Sam, who is a very outstanding intellectual in his own right. Thank you for being part of this discourse. What I want to say is that it is clear, it is indisputable from this demonstration that the intellectual prowess that has been demonstrated cannot be gainsaid. Critical issues have been raised, such as the activism of the agenda that we're pursuing. I would like to indicate that the broad objectives of Center for International Criminal Justice is to engage not only at academic level, but also at a practical level with the leaders of Africa to ensure that we encourage capacity building in their national domestic jurisdictions and also their challenges. I would want to indicate that out of this, it is not in doubt that this discourse today has actually generated opportunities for us. It has presented opportunities for Africa. It has not only presented opportunities, but has also displayed benefits for us to derive from these opportunities, as well as it has brought challenges which have been posed for us to confront. As I said, as scholars, as intellectuals, as pioneers, as the leaders in the world, we as academics must spearhead the fight against impunity. Whatever is inimical, whatever is an impediment or bottleneck that tends to frustrate the very goal of the international criminal justice must be confronted without fear or favor. And this is why we are equal to the task. And we know that one of the sources of international law is actually the works of distinguished scholars and academics. And this is beginning from here as well. We know very well that the law, the literature of the law of international criminal law at the moment has not been able to address the various thematic points revolving basically around the international criminal justice. This has been compounded as well with the dearth of jurisprudence that the court has been generating. So it's a challenge upon us to spearhead and try to delve and expand on the jurisprudence, contribute towards the jurisprudence, and develop the literature of the law and the discourse to be able to advance the interests of international criminal justice. And on that note, I thank you very much, friends, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. We hope to see you again next time.
Okay, thank you, Professor. Have some rest, some excellent recovery. Bye. Thank you. Bye. See you at the next session.
Nice
Bye.
meeting you all online.